Welcome to Sentai Potential. This is the show where I draft a season of Power Rangers by looking at the potential provided by a completed season of Super Sentai, such as last year's Ohsama Sentai King-Ohger. Hello everyone, it's thomasjujube, and this is maybe the most awkward episode of Sentai Potential so far. Two reasons. There isn't a Power Ranger season in production, they aren't making any new Lightning Collection figures, there's a reboot coming, but who knows if that will happen, and this is also a very late video, I do apologize for that. I've said it before, but just to reiterate, even with Power Rangers in whatever state it's in now, I'll still keep making potential videos because I just make these for fun to look back on the seasons in a different way than just reviewing it, which I still do in case you're interested in those kinds of thoughts. The only reason this video took so long, which is the second thing I need to address, is because I was busy, I didn't have many ideas, and I'm not a huge fan of King-Ohger, so I wasn't like super motivated. Those are my excuses. Alright, let's get into the actual stuff you're here for. I'm just going to keep the other world stuff because of all the green screen fight footage. It's best to just keep that idea. So this story will introduce us on Terra and its 5 kingdoms and rulers that have been fighting the Bugnarok with the power of Shu gods for centuries. Those have been small scale forces that haven't required the rulers to really power up in any way until the Fury of the Gods, which will happen around a decade before the start of the show, where Desnarok announced himself as the Bugnarok King. He unleashed a large-scale attack on the world, only defeated by the King-Ohger robot. But the power to form the robot has been lost since then, leading to the creation of the King-Ohger armor in its aftermath as the citizens and kings await Desnarok's return. In episode 1, we start from the perspective of Gira, a servant in the Shugadam castle, aide of the Prince Rakles, and he's seen what an ass he is. They're about the same age. Until Desnarok attacks Shugadam with his new large-scale Bugnarok, led by General Digorg and aided by High Priest Kamajin. The other kings arrive to help, but are held off outside the castle walls. Desnarok enters Shugadam castle and fights King Kausis / Kuwagata Ohger in the castle looking for something. It's very vague. Servant Gira stays behind to protect the castle and witnesses the death of Kausis. He takes up his Ohja caliber and attempts to fight off Desnarok, transforming into Kuwagata Ohger and sending Desnarok away as he somehow reawakens the power of the lost King Ohger, which turns him into God Kuwagata and combines with the other Shu gods. As King Ohger himself, Gira defeats the large-scale Bugnarok. In future scenes, we can change to the normal footage of him in the pilot's chair, but the idea is still that he is God Kuwagata, which is why he can control the mecha individually, but it's not as powerful compared to if it had a team full of pilots, and showing him in the pilot's chair is really just like an inside look or something to that effect. After the fight, Gira of course gives the Ohja caliber to Rakles since he's the new king. However, the powers do not work for Rakles, so he calls in the guards and tells them to arrest Gira for murdering his father and attempting to take throne. Thus begins the first arc, Battle for Shugadam. Gira travels throughout the world and meets the other kings, battling with Rakles for control of Shugadam while the new Bugnarok attack the world. Part of Gira's character is trying to prove that he wasn't just in the right place at the right time, but showing he is worthy of being the Shugadam king, and you can see him trying to learn what kind of king he would like to be through his interactions with the other Rangers in their episodes. And there's a mystery behind why he can just transform into God Kuwagata. The rivalry with Rakles is an attempt to show who is more worthy of ruling Shugadam, so Rakles uses a prototype King-Ohger system that Shugadam was developing, giving us Kuwagata Ohger and King-Ohger Zero fight scenes. The other kings will differ in terms of personalities. Yanma was an older king and fought during the Fury of the Gods. He reveals to Gira that God Kuwagata then was destroyed in battle alongside its pilot, the Shugadam Queen, which inspired him to create the King-Ohger armor. He sides with Gira as a mentor figure. Himeno's mother is still alive, but she was wounded in the Fury of the Gods, hence Himeno's rise to the throne at a young age, and she's vengeful towards the Bugnarok for harming her mother, killing her father, and she sides with Gira because she never liked Rakles. Kakuragi was crowned during the Fury of the Gods after killing the previous queen who is deemed corrupt and siding with the Bugnarok. He sides with Rackley's, believing him to be the true king, but it's later revealed that he killed the old queen in cold blood just to gain power, which is why he publicly opposes Gira, but after his past is revealed, he laments and joins Gira. Rita was the Chief Justice during and after the Fury of the Gods, and sides with Rackley's because of order, having the prince becoming king, but Gira convinces them last to join their team with Legend King-Ohger, which is seen as a proof of Gira's worthiness to become the king. When Legend King-Ohger is assembled, the team heavily wounds Desnarok, and with all the kingdoms behind him, Gira challenges Rackley's to a duel for the throne of Shugadam. Unfortunately, Rackley's wins, but before he can kill Gira, he's interrupted by Spider Kumonos. With the debut of the Sixth Ranger, now it's probably a good time to talk about the King-Ohger suits. The aesthetic of the main King-Ohgers is quite interesting to me because on first glance they are pretty plain. They're almost entirely their individual colors, and the only significant breakup is another shade of the same color, and even the helmet designs are just made up entirely of visor. And yet they don't actually look plain because the armor adds all this detailing to the designs, like a texture of sorts. They're not even just armor since they've got all these little cuts in the molding and have this plasticky reflective material. The undersuits utilize a mix of this material and less reflective ones for the two shades as well, so it gives more contrast than you'd initially notice. The shoulder cape mantle thing just completes the look, adding a final bit of flash and complexity to a collection of sleek and simplistic suits. It looks like they've got exoskeleton armor like a bunch of humanoid bug soldiers, but the cape is also a reminder that the users are kind of royal in nature. I always thought it was a bit weird how simplistic they look compared to the civilian outfits. I personally would have added some more individuality, and that's why Spider Kumonos and King Kuogata-Ohger always appealed to me way more. Like any good Sixth Ranger, this one takes the basic design and modifies it to become beautifully distinct. The secondary shade becomes a contrast color, the silver accents are switched out for a striking gold, and the cape is traded out for coattails. He's clearly still a King-Ohger, just one that follows a slightly different design, especially compared to Kuogata-Ohger, who's largely just a recolor, and you can tell he's something different from Spider Kumonos, but also something different from the main team. Meanwhile, like any good upgrade, King Kuogata-Ohger takes the basic design and just over-exaggerates everything. Every little bit of armor is enlarged, the two colors become shades of gold, the helmet becomes way more intricate but keeps the same visor look, and of course, two capes are added instead of just one. I absolutely love this suit. It captures the look of a bug-powered king beautifully and looks awesome. It's my favorite suit to come out of the show, but all the other ones are cool, I guess. Of course, the real bug-powered king is the titular King-Ohger, who's like the complete opposite of the suits. There's nothing simple about this design. He's covered head to toe in this crazy steampunk detailing. There's almost no smooth surfaces on this guy. It's all detailed in some way or another, and yet the individual components are pretty distinctly visible like any other Sentai robo. The ornate designs fit perfectly with the narrative that this is some kind of ancient technological god of the world, and the obvious bug components like wings and two sets of horns make him look incredibly badass too. Each individual bug is immediately recognizable as a part of the season's arsenal because of the shared steampunk detailing, causing any combination with King-Ohger or any other robots in the season to look super complete. Like, yeah, it's an additional formation, but it almost doesn't look like one, just like a basic combination because of how well everything flows together. We go up to a combination with 20 individual components, and it's awesome. Not only because they actually made a 20-piece robot combination and it's actually a real suit that some poor guy had to stomp around in, but because every component more or less integrates into the same design with the same design aesthetic with each evolution. I'm not a massive fan of these aesthetics overall, but there are a couple of standouts, and I can't deny they're a great addition to the lineup of Super Sentai suits because of how unique yet familiar all of these are. And I guess they'd be a great addition to the Power Rangers lineup too, but you know, it's funny because a lot of the stuff surrounding these aesthetics isn't the most beautiful unless you like shitty green screens, but that's, hey, if you do, that's your opinion, I don't mind. And once again, if you want to hear more of my thoughts on the actual season of King-Ohger, make sure to check out my review from last year. Enter Arc 2, which focuses on Spider Kumonos, the son of Desnarok and the prince of the Bugnarok. He's the new main antagonist and leader of the Bugnarok in his father's absence. His equipment is Bugnarok developed based on God Tarantula, a shoe god that has sided with the Bugnarok since ancient times, but because they're not as smart as Yanma, they've taken all this time completing it for the prince of the Bugnarok. He starts out continuing his father's plan to destroy humans, but over time reveals he has a fascination with them as a species, hence his copying of the ranger armor and tendency to take on a human disguise and appear in public. In this arc, the character development for the 5 rangers will be learning of the Bugnarok people and learning that they might be misunderstood thanks to Spider Kumonos. But eventually he realizes he's only causing destruction to appeal to his father that also never really cared for him. He wants Bugnarok harmony, but not human destruction. So he decides to ally with the King-Ohgers to create world peace. Heracles, now king of Shugadam, calls out the other kingdoms as traitors and mounts a final attack in his King-Ohger Zero, causing the debut of Extreme King-Ohgers, which defeats King-Ohger Zero. However, this is Heracles' plan all along, as he harvests the power source of Zero into the Ohger Crown Lance, powering up and attempting to defeat Gira in one last duel. But knowing he has the backing of the entire world, including the Bugnarok, Gira wins this time, claiming the power-up for himself, defeating Okuwagata Ohger once and for all. He doesn't kill Heracles, he just spares him, but amidst all the distractions, a healed Desnarok has taken over Shugadam Castle, entering Arc 3 Galact Insects, with quotation marks. Once the King-Ohgers defeat Desnarok and reclaim the kingdom, it's established that the Bugnarok have splintered. Some are on the side of the King-Ohgers with Spider Kumonos, and others stay on Desnarok's side. Basically like Gira versus Heracles for control of Shugadam, Spider Kumonos and the King-Ohgers are fighting for the heart of Bugnarok. When General Daigorg attacks, Spider Kumonos tells Gira that his new king powers should be able to awaken an ancient castle robot mode. Gira does this and defeats him, and wonders why the spider knows about this thing in Shugadam. Turns out the castle robot technology has been Desnarok's goal since episode 1. He used the Kuwagata feud as a distraction to obtain it. This is because his goal has been to use this technology to create robotic, Shugat-infused bodies for Bugnarok high priests to inhabit. These entities are the Bugnarok equivalent of the Shugods that Desnarok harnessed to cause the entire fury of the gods. In the final battle of that, they united and combined into one giant body, but it was defeated by the previous team using the King-Ohger, leaving only the Kamajin consciousness behind. Desnarok has now powered up Kamajin and recreated the other priests as immortal Techno-Bugnarok to defeat the King-Ohgers, led by the strongest of them, Douglas. And in addition to the High Priests, Desnarok's team is aided by a mysterious Skull Warrior wielding the prototype Ohger Caliber system. Just kidding, it's not mysterious, it's obviously Heracles, who is now sided with Desnarok to get revenge on Gira himself. In the attempt to find a way to defeat these high priests, Yanma also discovers the reason Gira can become God Kuwagata to control King-Ohger. And it's not because he has any divine heritage or something like that, it's just that his spirit and ideals resonated the most with the spirit of the ancient god Kuwagata, so he's been able to tap into its full power. The other kings are also able to tap into this power with their own respective Shu gods, and once they all do, the whole team will be able to access the Fangs of Defiance forms and turn into their Shu gods like Gira. This allows them to defeat 2 of the high priests on the ground and in King-Ohger. And in order to strengthen the team's resolves, I think the team composition should change a bit as well. Maybe just stuff like for Himeno, her mother finally dies and Rita names a successor, but I also think it would be really cool if Kaguragi actually steps down as Hachi-Ohger and switches to a mentor role as a way to atone for his past, and he passes on the ranger role to like his child or something, and they end up being the one to channel the full God Hachi power system. Unfortunately, with each high priest that is defeated, the others just get more powerful, meaning their new upgrades are slowly becoming obsolete. The God King-Ohger formation is proposed and utilized, but it's unstable, and after its first formation, the team is wounded greatly except for Gira, and they have to regroup. Thankfully, at this point, Heracles decides to finally make his move, where he turns on the Bugnarok and sides with the King-Ohgers using his new High Priest empowered abilities. He reveals that since they were all kind of housed in the Kamajin consciousness for so long, that with each one that is defeated, their powers are being spread out to the others, and Desnarok's plan is just for each High Priest to be defeated and power him up all the way so that he can destroy all of Terra. Heracles may not be able to stand Gira or the rest of the King-Ohgers, but he is willing to put aside his differences so the world isn't destroyed, and he entrusts his new powers to the team, allowing them to create the full God King-Ohger combination and dispatch the remaining high priests, which allows Desnarok to grow to giant size. But with Heracles and the rest of the entire world behind them, they're able to unite and defeat him once and for all. The Bugnarok citizens are freed from tyranny. Maybe they started to revolt against their king over time, and they now are able to enjoy world peace among the other citizens of Terra in Spider Komonos' newly created Bugnarok kingdom, which also houses the prisoner Desnarok and the guard Heracles, atoning for his crimes. I didn't include the gozyuger / Dino Charge stuff in this just because I didn't feel like doing it, even though I like gozyuger and Dino Charge. But if, we had to integrate it in some way, I do think it should just be its own separate movie, and you can use all of the footage together in one long thing. I don't know what the story of it would be, but I think the basic story you can work with is that the Dino Charge Earth, which has been established to have dinosaurs living on it that never died out, somehow evolution takes them down the path of weird bug creatures and bug robots. So you can say that the Bugnarok and the Shoe Gods are evolutions of the dinosaurs somehow. Make sure you let me know your own ideas for how to adapt or change King-Ohger, or any other ideas you might have about the season. You can include the gozyuger stuff if you'd like. They don't have to be improvements or anything like that. All of this is just done for fun. And also make sure to subscribe for more Super Sentai videos, and I hope to see you next time.